So, and you'll find when you pick up from Bible to Bible, the New Revised Standard Version and the this version and that version, you'll find verses added and deleted and, so much. Even between the Catholic and the Protestant Bible, Catholic Bible has 7 books which are not even found in the Protestant Bible. So these kind of variations due to scriptural criticism, being proven to be interpolation and changes, the secularist scholars try to put the same status on the Quran. And they gathered manuscripts from Russia, Tashkent, this is Tashkent in Russia, where they have some early manuscripts from this early period, from the time actually of Uthman. Copies made, some of the copies which were made from the 7 copies ended up in Tashkent, ended up in Turkey, in Egypt, they're in the Library of Congress, they're in London. So they gathered these manuscripts and they compared them. Because this is how you know when interpolation has taken place. Right? If you compare 2 manuscripts of the same text and you find differences in the text, one which is earlier than the other, right? Then you can assume that what is in the later text has been added. Right? However, when they compared manuscripts, whether they picked them up in Indonesia, in India, or in Spain, in Algeria, or in Tashkent, in Russia, they found no difference in the text. The text was the same. There were differences in the style of writing, but the text the same. No difference. Which is proof, scientific proof, that the Quran has not been changed. And this is the basis of Islam, the scripture, the final scripture which has remained unchanged. Unchanged and recorded, preserved not only in writing, but in the memories of millions. From the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, if one were to destroy, if one were to invent a bomb which would explode in the world today and only destroy paper, right, a paper bomb, the only religious text, scripture, that could be rewritten word for word without a single change is the Quran. Though the Quran, the length of it is like the length of the New Testament. The Quran, we know, we have schools here, right here in the Emirates. We have schools all over the Muslim world where children are put through courses, 3-year courses. When they're 7 years old or 9 years old, they're put through 3-year courses, and within the 3 years' time, they complete the memorization of the whole Quran. Memorization to the degree that all you have to do is to open anywhere in the book, and you start to recite from one verse, they will complete that verse for you. Not, because you have different levels of memorization, but this is exact memorization. They have competitions in Mecca, they have competitions in Malaysia and Indonesia every year, amongst women, amongst men, for memorization of Quran. Even in the Philippines, they have competitions. I visited competitions in Mindanao between those who had memorized the whole Quran. That is the Quran, preserved as no other book, no other scripture in the world can we say has that level of preservation. As I said, the significance of all this was, one, that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the last prophet. So the text which he brought had to be preserved for all time. So his prophethood has significance. Two, his main miracle. Now he had miracles as other prophets had, similar, different from others, some and similar to others, during his lifetime, which proved to the people of Islam that he was a prophet. But because he was to be the last of the prophets, his miracle had to be available to you today. You see, if somebody were to ask you, do you believe that Jesus brought the dead back to life? Okay, as Muslims we believe. Christians believe, but if somebody said to you, can you prove to me that Jesus brought the dead back to life? You cannot prove it. It is something you have taken on faith because you read it in the scripture and you accept that scripture. In the Quran it is mentioned that Jesus brought the dead back to life, that's why we believe. But if you are to ask to prove it, no one could prove it. If you're asked to prove that Moses caused the Red Sea to be separated, God's miracle for Moses, Red Sea was separated and Moses went across. Could you prove that? You cannot prove it. It is something that you have accepted on faith. We believe it because it's in the Quran also. But those miracles were not to prove to you and I today that those were prophets of God. Because a miracle, remember, a miracle is revealed to a prophet to prove to his people that he is a prophet of God. Because they will see that miracle. Those who were with Moses, when they saw the Red Sea separated and they rode through, you think they had any doubt that Moses was a prophet of God? No. That's the evidence. Those that saw Jesus had the dead come back to life. You think they had any doubt that Jesus was a prophet of God? No. That was the evidence to them. But that's not evidence for us. We know about the prophets of old by the prophets that came to us and informed us about them. So since Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was to be the last of the prophets, then he had to have a miracle which would last till today, last till the end of time, that would stand as proof that he was a prophet of God. And that miracle is the Quran. When we go in future sessions, we will look in more detail about the miracle of the Quran. Miracle not only in its preservation, the fact that it can be preserved as preserved, but miracle from a scientific point of view, miracle as a literary miracle. There's a variety of different angles that it is a miracle. Right? And of course, this is, of course, particularly significant, we said also, because of the fact that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, this is confirming that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was not sent only to the people of Arabia. He was not sent to the Arabs, just to the Arabs. He was raised amongst them, that message came in Arabic, but he was sent, as Allah said in the Quran, as a messenger to all of mankind. See, all of the previous prophets, they were sent to particular people in particular places for particular periods of time. And that is why God did not preserve their revelation, because they were only meant for their time. So the fact that the Quran is preserved as it is preserved is also confirming the prophethood. This is the confirmation of the prophethood, and that prophethood was to all of mankind and not limited to the time in which the prophet came. Okay, inshallah we'll stop here on the compilation of the Quran. We said the preservation of the Quran took place from the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He preserved it in his own memory, in the memory of his companions, by reciting it in prayer, by teaching all the new Muslims to recite it, by encouraging his companions to learn and teach it.